I found the compass in the left drawer of her vanity. Brass worn smooth on the edges. The glass showed fine scratches like a history I didn't recognize. The needle twitched and settled. North was there. We weren't. We were supposed to be finalizing Europe. Flights held, hotels bookmarked, a list of small streets to walk. She cancelled the tasting we booked. Next week, she texted from the other room. Then she moved a dinner. Then she forgot a museum slot I'd set reminders for. Small edits, all of them in my direction. I didn't ask why the compass was tucked under stacked scarves. She didn't collect old things. She preferred new boxed tract. This piece had weight, like it belonged to someone who needed direction more than decoration. I turned it once. It pointed beyond us. She started staying late, not every night, just enough to make after dinner feel optional. Her laughter came back filtered the way people sound when they watch themselves. She filled the silence with background noise, TV on, music low, an extra glass left half drunk. I let the silence do its work. People explain more when you don't. Our shared travel folder showed a new icon I didn't recognize. The itinerary PDF names changed subtly, dates nudged. A security email flagged a new login for trip plans. Her explanation was casual. They updated the app. I didn't argue. I removed nothing. I added a note and watched for edits. She put her phone face down. Not unusual. Not special. Just new for her. The passcode went from 4 taps to 6. Find My stopped listing my device as shared. Accident, she said with a shrug. I shrugged back and opened the fridge. We both knew it wasn't. On the console table by the door, her keys gained a fob I hadn't seen. A thin leather strap, frayed like it had already belonged elsewhere. She tossed them down like the weight meant nothing. I looked at the strap, then at her shoes, a pair not meant for commuting. She walked past me without touch. I didn't move to close the gap. The compass left the drawer and landed on my desk. I cleaned the glass with a cloth and set it upright against a mug. It faced the hallway, not the window. When I worked, the needle sat in the corner of my eye, steady and unconcerned. Precision is a quiet thing. It doesn't announce itself. She brought up Europe in passing. We can push the museums, she said. Be spontaneous. I nodded. Spontaneity is the oldest disguise for distance. You don't need a plan if you don't plan on being there. I penciled a new date and didn't confirm it. Her calendar shifted from full color to gray blocks labeled busy. Shared events turned private. Our family album stopped updating. The last photo was of a map spread across our table. Her caption had been light then. The picture looked staged to me now. Sometimes the future is clearest in reverse. At night, she fell asleep with her phone under the pillow. The glow cut a line on her cheek. I reached for the lamp and turned it off. The room went quiet except for her breathing and a faint buzz against the mattress. I didn't reach under. Not yet. Timing is the difference between noise and proof. She teased me once about the compass. Vintage? She said, lifting an eyebrow. Where'd you dig that up? I held her gaze for a moment, then put it back on the desk. Found it, I said. Nothing more. She knew I noticed. I tracked the small things. The email from the airline addressed only to her. The way her phone showed a new case, then another 2 days later. Screensavers cycling through cities we hadn't agreed on. I logged it like weather. You don't argue with rain. You check the forecast and change your route. Friends asked about Europe. I kept my answers clean. We'll see. No reasons. No apologies. The less I gave, the more space opened between their questions and my patience. Curiosity fades in empty rooms. She started stories and trailed off. Work, a colleague, a timeline that jumped. My name appeared less in her sentences. The house felt organized, wiped down, containered. Nothing out of place except what mattered. I didn't touch the trip reservations. I didn't cancel anything. I watched which plans she forgot without help. People show you what they want to keep when you stop reminding them. The compass kept pointing. I let it. I wasn't lost. I was waiting. Late nights stacked. New meetings, pushed dinner past 9. She laughed in a way that didn't land on anything in the room. She'd pause mid-story and check the time. I let it pass. I didn't fill the gaps for her. The Europe folder sat on the counter, untouched. I left it there 3 days. No questions. No. Should we confirm? The compass lay beside it, lid open, needle steady. It looked older under kitchen light. When she came in, she glanced at the folder, not the compass. She moved around it like it belonged to a stranger. I used her phone for a practical thing. Seat assignments. The airline sent a code to her number. Mine was in the garage charging. The screen lit up before I touched it. Unknown names with tidy initials. An emoji where a company name should be. Same timestamps, different nights, 1:12, 1:18, 1:23. Messages cleared themselves from the banner fast, as if someone knew to set it that way. I read the code. I booked the seats. I put the phone back without a smudge. She stepped out to take this. 10 minutes later. Hallway footsteps. Door click. The do not disturb. Moonlit at the top, except the screen still flashed twice. Time precisely. I poured water. I didn't follow. Privacy tightened the next day. A new 6-digit passcode. Face unlock asked for attention every time. The hidden album disappeared from photos. A Vault app one hadn't seen before hid itself in a folder labeled Utilities. Our shared calendar lost the trip reminder. The family iPad asked for her account, and then stopped asking. I marked the changes without comment. Systems tell you more than apologies. She started leaving early under generous reasons. Traffic's bad. We're prepping a pitch. She never used we at home before. She ate in the car and came in empty-handed. The sink stayed clean. She wore the jacket I hadn't seen in years and brushed lint off it in the mirror twice before turning away when I walked in. I tied my shoes. I told her, I'll be late. I wasn't. People texted us as couples and I replied as one. We're not sure yet. Keep me posted. She sent separate messages with a different tone. Shorter. Loose on times. I watched their answers land. Polite. Uneasy. Friends notice patterns faster than offenders. I put the passports on the entry table next to the compass. Not dramatic, just there. I went to the garage and fixed a loose hinge to give the moment space. When I came back, the passports were under a magazine. The compass remained on top, open like a little mouth that didn't speak. She set her keys beside it, and didn't ask why it was out. She knew I noticed. Calls came later and farther apart. She took them by the window with her back turned. The smile didn't reach her eyes. It stopped at the cheekbones, then dropped the second I stepped into view. She would flip the phone face down and switch to weather talk. I responded with the same weather. Neutral ground suits people with secrets. I started checking the small things. Shared drive activity. The family streaming profile kicked me out twice at midnight with a login from a different city, then switched back. A new Bluetooth device had paired to her car last week. The car cleared its history overnight. She never cared about that kind of maintenance. Now she did. I updated nothing. I wrote down dates. She told me she might meet her colleague for coffee on Saturday. The name slid around in her mouth like it could take any shape and still pass. I said, enjoy. I went to the hardware store and ran into two of our friends by accident. They mentioned she'd missed brunch again. I nodded. I paid for screws and left. At home I clicked the compass lid shut and opened it again. The needle fixed north and held. Not a metaphor. A tool. My finger left a print on the brass. She walked past and wiped it with the corner of her sleeve without looking. Old habits. Clean the evidence. I made tea. Night drifted in without ceremony. She went to shower before bed, a new pattern for late evenings. The bathroom fan ran long enough to fog the mirror and the hallway. She scrolled with the door closed, steam curling under it. I didn't knock. I set my alarm and turned my screen face down. Two-factor codes pinged my email for our travel accounts around 11. A recovery request. Cancelled, then tried again from a different IP. I reset the password from my laptop and enabled alerts to only me. The airline sent a confirmation. Her phone stayed silent across the hall, as if silence could be programmed. She asked about dinner plans for Friday while standing in the doorway, not stepping in. Her eyes took inventory of the room, not me. I'll be with the team late, she added before I answered. I said, okay. No extra words. She waited for a question that didn't come. She left her mouth open half a second, then closed it. Some truths don't need questions. I unplugged the charger, pocketed the compass, and turned off the light. Distance isn't an argument, it's a decision. I let the needle keep its direction. I kept mine. She took the call in the hallway like people do when they want you to hear only the parts they can control. Whispered tone. Careful pauses. My name landed in the middle of it, clipped, like a test. I didn't move. I kept rinsing a glass that was already clean. You're overthinking, she said softly. Then a laugh that didn't match the words. The reply bled through the drywall anyway. Baritone, easy, stretched vowels like a man who enjoys being heard. I knew the shape of that voice. Not the details, the posture. The compass pressed into my pocket when I leaned against the sink. It had weight today. I let my hand rest there and watched the window over the sink show me nothing but our fence and a strip of sky. The voice said her name, said mine, said, he won't. then a dropped whisper I couldn't catch. I didn't walk closer. I didn't need the rest. Her footsteps shifted. Carpet hush. A door shut down the hall, the guest room she uses for calls. Our old tablet on the sideboard lit up. She'd signed into her account there months ago to show photos from a trip we never took. She never signed out. A bubble slid across the screen before it locked itself. Unknown number. An initial, not a name. Timing had a way of talking. I dried the glass, put it back in the cabinet, unlocked the tablet with the 6 numbers I've known since our bank accounts were young and shared. The lock screen had 3 alerts. New login to a work app, calendar changed, travel entry removed, and a location permission grant to a device that wasn't ours. Not a mistake. You don't grant what you didn't request. The call ended as I scrolled. She didn't walk back to me first. She went to the bedroom. A drawer closed. Hangers shifted. 5 minutes later she swept through the kitchen with a scarf already on, like she had somewhere to be she hadn't told me about. She read my posture the way I'd read hers. She slowed at the doorway. "Back by 9, she said. It wasn't a question. I nodded once. She left her keys on the hook with too much care. The front door clicked, then latched. I opened our account portal. She had an old habit of forgetting to switch to cellular in the driveway. Router logs don't misremember. An unfamiliar device had attached last night at 12:41 a.m., stayed for 8 minutes, then left. Not her work laptop. Not mine. Manufacturer name I recognized from a man I've had beers with after office parties. He once used it in my kitchen and joked that the brand made him look productive. I didn't write down the name. I didn't need the reminder. The compass sat on the counter beside the tablet. I watched the needle settle north and stay there while my eyes traced the timestamps. A message thread on the tablet blinked again before the sync cut it back off. Short lines, coordinates in plain text, not disguised, not clever. A hotel name abbreviated like a meeting room. She always liked neat cover stories. People mistake uniformity for invisibility. I set a kettle on for tea I wouldn't drink. Logged into my carrier account. Identified a number that appeared more after midnight than during daylight. I copied it, then deleted it from her favorites, along with 2 newly created contacts named after brands we don't buy. Not to hide it, to see how long before she noticed. Tests don't need speeches. The living room camera we never use had a motion clip from early morning. She disabled the main unit in the app. She forgot the cache on the web. I watched her move through her own house like a guest, keys in hand, shoes in hand, coat already on, checking the mirror in the hall for nothing but the look on her face. She paused by my office door, listened, heard nothing, left anyway. I sent a calendar invitation to her work email for the Europe trip we were supposed to finalize. Florence, Prague, Berlin. I picked 1 hotel each and left the notes blank. She declined in under a minute with a form response and no addendum. Rehearsed. I didn't respond. I flagged the decline and archived it. My phone buzzed with a security email. New session on my personal cloud from a device model that matched her phone. Timestamped for last week when she borrowed it to print a boarding pass that never hit the printer. She'd looked, maybe at my photos, maybe at my notes. People who mislead assume everyone plays the same game. They project, they get sloppy. I gathered what I had and put it in a folder that looked like a tax document. Dull name, quiet place. I wiped the tablet and signed it into my account. She'd notice when she needed the cover. I wanted the moment she ran into that absence. I wanted to watch which way she reached. She texted at 8:58. Running late, don't wait up. I didn't type a reply. The kettle clicked off. I let it cool. Then I slid the compass back into my pocket and took a slow walk through each room, touching nothing, cataloging the new order of things. The voice from the call had been careful enough to stay distant. He knew the rules. He didn't know mine. I didn't go to the guest room. I didn't call the number. I marked the lines and left them undisturbed. Some truths don't need questions. They need a map. I started drawing one. Morning came without ceremony. I shaved. I made coffee. I left her mug upside down in the rack. The compass stayed in my pocket. Cold brass against fabric. A weight that didn't lie. My phone buzzed while the street was still gray. Unknown number. I let it glow until it dimmed, then opened it. Hi, sorry to reach out. I work with her. You're listed as emergency contact. Is everything okay? She's been off. I didn't answer. I read it twice. I saved the number as a note, not a contact. Then I slid the phone face down and watched steam from the kettle wander and thin. It buzzed again. She left early yesterday. Again today. Calendars all blocked out with vague titles. She said she had a lunch with an old friend. Just looked like she didn't want to be here. I poured the water and didn't drink. Routine is a ruler. It shows what's uneven. I lifted the phone. Understood. I typed, then erased it. I sent nothing. One more message, almost immediate. I don't want to be in the middle. Just saw her leaving with Daniel. From your Sunday games, right? He said hi like we'd all known each other forever. The name sat there. Familiar. Clean letters. I put the phone down. The compass found my ribs. A small press under the t-shirt. I let it stay there. A reminder you can carry without talking to. I opened my laptop. Notifications rolled in after wake. Security alert from my cloud. New login from a corporate IP. Last night. Another from the shared album I'd renamed after we cancelled another planning call. Europe draft. The activity feed showed a download at 10:41 p.m. 2 attachments opened. Not by me. I didn't chase the alert. I printed the details to PDF and dropped it into a folder she didn't know existed. Then I changed the password and disabled old recovery codes. No email to her. No announcement. Just a door closing without a sound. The calendar I managed sent me something back. A declined reminder I hadn't touched. Lisbon Hotel's short list. It flashed the device tag it came from. Not her phone. An iPad I recognized from a past dinner. His, not hers. People forget devices do the part they're built for. They record. I created a new folder called Bookings Final. I filled it with a neat, fake itinerary. Dates. Times. A dinner at a place that doesn't take walk-ins. A line item for, two, in a city we never reached. I shared it with the same address that had opened the previous files. I watched the access light go green. Then I turned my laptop to sleep. A test doesn't need an audience. My phone lit with one last message from the colleague. Please don't mention me. She's been asking people to cover small things. It's not my place. I replied with 2 words. Noted. Thanks. No more. Their typing bubble wavered and vanished. Useful people stay useful when you don't push them into choosing sides. I took the compass out and clicked the lid open, then shut. The needle steadied even on my kitchen table. North is boring until you need it. I held it in my palm, the hinge lines worn by other hands. I wondered if she had bought it for herself or if it was a gift. Then I put it back in my pocket and went to work. At lunch I walked by the park where the Sunday games happened. I didn't stop. I watched the field from the crosswalk and timed my steps to the light. Daniel wasn't there. A man I knew bounced a ball to his kid and looked toward my side of the street like he felt a draft. I kept moving. Back home, I checked the feed. The fake itinerary had been opened twice. Same IP, then a mobile network. Someone added a private comment to the file. Looks good. We can swing this. The sentence had her cadence. No signature. People think closed doors keep their names safe. Logs don't care. I took a pen and wrote 3 lines on a small card. Dates. The name that had texted me. The device tag. I pinned the card inside the pantry behind the flower. I didn't need a board on a wall. I needed a place only I reached. Her car pulled in after 7. She walked straight to the bathroom, then to the fridge. No greeting. I didn't offer one. She glanced at me and smiled the way people do when they're acting for a camera they can't find. I rinsed my cup and set it in the rack, upside down beside hers. Big day? She asked, voice light, like we were playing at normal. I looked at her shoes. Wet sidewalk on the rubber edges. Not from our neighborhood. I didn't answer. She knew I noticed. She leaned near, as if to touch my arm, then stopped short. I'll be in the office late tomorrow. Don't wait up. I nodded once. Clean. Final. Then I reached in my pocket and let the compass sit on the counter where she could see it, hinge catching the low light. She watched it a second longer than she meant to. I like that, she said. I know, I said. I picked it back up and walked to my room. Maps don't argue. They show routes. I had enough to chart the next turn. Friends started circling the subject without touching it. Group messages filled with light plans. Brunch. A show. A hike. Her name kept getting added, then quietly removed. I didn't comment. I showed up to one dinner alone. No announcement. No story. They adjusted their faces like they'd rehearsed empathy in a mirror. We haven't seen her much, one of them said, studying his glass. Another nodded too quickly and kept talking about work. It was clumsy. Honest enough. I let the silence sit until it did the work for me. At home, the compass rode in my pocket like a small stone. Not heavy. Just present. When I sat, it pressed a mark through my jeans. A reminder you can feel without looking. I kept touching it with my thumb, the hinge stiff under the nail. Her calendar sits on our kitchen tablet. Not because I asked, because she wanted us aligned. This week it showed 2 team offsites, back to back, both starting at 8 and ending after midnight. Our Europe folder in the shared drive pinged me. Access granted to a new address I didn't recognize. A guest account, no initials. I revoked it, screenshotted the audit trail, and logged the IP. The alert looked like a hiccup in a system, but it wasn't. Systems only hiccup when someone pushes the wrong button. My phone buzzed again. Another friend. You guys good? 3 words. No emojis. People tell you the truth when you stop trying to manage their comfort. I replied. We're fine. Then I put the phone face down and finished the dishes. The whispers reached me out of order. A passing comment about her leaving early from a birthday. A joke about night owl energy. That didn't land. Someone mentioned seeing her at a place she said she hated. She used to avoid that bar because of the music. Now she found time for it. I didn't ask with whom. I'd already learned more by not hunting the answer. Her colleague sent a second message, careful this time. She's been different. The dots said the rest. He didn't want to be the messenger. I didn't make him. I thanked him. He sent a thumbs up and nothing else. That's how people keep their own hands clean. I checked the home network. 2 new device names joined while I was at the office. One dropped off within an hour. The smart lock log showed entries just after 2 a.m. on a night she swore she slept on the sofa with a show on. I didn't confront her. I exported the list. I saved it to a separate drive I bought that afternoon. Cache. No shared accounts. Control doesn't need an audience. Our trip confirmations sat in my email, unread. I opened them, canceled one hotel, and moved the refund to a new card. I split utilities into separate logins, removed joint autopay on 2 bills she never checked anyway. A small shift. Quiet. Doors that used to swing both ways tightened on their hinges. Friends asked me to come out again. I went. I listened. One of them finally said, "We saw her near the river last week. Late." He watched me the way people watch a road they expect to crack. I didn't give him anything. I sipped my drink, nodded once, and asked about his promotion. The conversation turned because I turned it. At home she tried lightness. She wanted to talk about a coworker's dog and office drama. I gave her clean answers and empty berths between them. She hovered, waiting for a fight she could manage. I switched the laundry. She stopped talking when it was clear I wasn't chasing the joke into the justification behind it. Her phone stayed face down. The compass sat on the counter while I folded shirts. She glanced at it like it might turn itself. When she reached for my laptop later, I didn't stop her. I'd already removed my saved sessions and locked down recovery numbers. An alert came to my watch the minute a new browser tried to pull my email. Unknown device. I dismissed it with my thumb. She closed the lid and said she was tired. I didn't answer. By the weekend, our friends stopped pretending they hadn't noticed. They asked shorter questions. You okay? Need anything? I stayed polite and non-committal. They filled in enough blanks to paint around. I filed the shapes away, lined up with the logs, the entries, the edits on the trip folder made by a guest at 1:13 a.m. routes drawn by people who thought no one else was watching. The compass bothered me that night. Not its weight, its use. A tool for direction that had spent weeks telling me what I already knew. I set it on the nightstand and looked at it for a long minute. Maps don't argue. They mark exits. In the morning I booked a consult with an attorney and moved a meeting to make room. I didn't announce anything to her. I didn't ask a question I'd already answered. She left. For the office retreat, in sneakers that were still damp from a place we don't jog. I noted the time. I locked the door behind her. Friends can tiptoe. Devices can whisper. Calendars can be dressed up. Patterns don't. The house held its own breath after the door clicked shut behind her. I left the compass face down on the nightstand and let the needle lose its trick. Coffee. Calendar. The phone buzzed. A mutual friend. He didn't ask how I was. He went straight to logistics. He'd seen her last night at the Riverside Hotel bar. Not the retreat site. Not alone. With someone I know from before we married. Someone who used to fix our speakers and borrow my drill. Someone I used to trust. He had a timestamp and a receipt, forwarded without commentary. 2 drinks that weren't hers. Room service charged under a nickname I recognized from years back. His text showed a location pin a block from where the retreat brochure promised team building. The time overlapped. Patterns don't make room for accidents. I didn't argue. I thanked him. I asked for nothing extra. I saved the attachments to a folder I'd already created and named with the date. Quiet labeling beats loud denial. An email alert arrived an hour later. New login to my cloud from a network tied to her office. Device name I didn't own. I checked sharing settings. Our Europe album had a new viewer added last week using her private address, and a forwarding rule in my email sent bank alerts to that same address. I took screenshots. I removed access. I didn't send a warning. At noon I stepped into the attorney's office and let the air conditioning do the talking. I laid out a clean timeline without adjectives. He asked simple questions. I answered them and wrote down instructions like grocery items, document, don't delete, separate accounts, protect devices, keep the conversation controlled. He mentioned the digital forwarding rule twice. People who handle fallout respect evidence. Back home, I opened a fresh checking account and moved my direct deposit. I set fraud alerts, froze one card, and reset two-factor on everything that mattered. I logged the changes, printed the confirmations, and slid them into a thin folder. The compass went on top like a paperweight that doesn't guide, just holds. Another text landed from the same friend a little later. He apologized for getting involved, then added a single line. He drove the same old car. He wanted to explain what that meant. I didn't let him. I let the silence sit. He understood. I checked our shared calendar. Her retreat entry had been edited at 6:14 a.m. by an account labeled with a work alias she doesn't use at home. The location field lost a floor number. I exported the calendar log and placed it beside the receipts. A story that adjusts itself for convenience is a useful witness. I mapped the conversation I would allow. 3 questions. No commentary. No rescue. I'd choose a time when she expected dinner and small talk. The folder would be open. The compass would be there. North wouldn't matter. Sequence would. Before closing the laptop, I checked my phone's permissions. An app one never installed had access to my location. It was tied to her shared family plan. Quiet breach in reverse. I archived the consent screen, removed the app, and wrote the date in the margin of the timeline. Some truths don't need speeches. The social circle did what they always do when they smell smoke. They called to gossip and asked if we were fine. I returned none of the calls. Messages came longer after that. When people can't read you, they fill the gap. Their words proved more than their sympathy. In the evening, I stood at the bedroom door and looked at the compass on the nightstand. I flipped it over and watched the needle settle where it wanted. I wasn't following it. I wasn't waiting for her. I was arranging the room. I sent the attorney a short update and confirmed a second meeting. I scheduled the confrontation for the moment after she'd unpack a story and before she'd build another. I didn't need her to confess. I needed her to realize the conversation was already over. She told me once that real men don't beg. She was right. I prefer appointments. She came in 7 minutes late, shoes in hand. Keys on the counter. I'd cleared the table and set one thing in the middle of it, the compass. The folder rested beside it, squared to the edge. Sit, I said. Not loud, not soft. Enough. I slid the first page across. Calendar prints. Our trip blocked in blue. The cancellations in red. Training. She'd told me that week. The receipt under it showed a rideshare to a wine bar 3 blocks from his building. I didn't add commentary. I let the margins do the speaking. She reached for humor and missed. A shrug. A small tilt of the head. I didn't take the bait. I placed the next sheet on top of the first. Family plan call logs. Late nights. 2-hour windows to one number saved as Pilates. I held up another page. The carrier looked up with the real name. She watched my hand, not the number. People watched the blade, not the cut. I put my phone on the table, screen up. Security alerts. New sign-in detected. Location matched her colleague's Wi-Fi. 2 attempts, then a success. Forwarding rule added to my email, and then removed 36 minutes later. Ticket confirmations filtered to a folder named Travel. I pointed to the timestamps. I didn't speak. She knew I noticed. That was, she started. I opened the next page instead. The credit app log, a new device added to my rideshare account at 2:03 a.m. 2 rides charged to my profile but paid with a card ending in her digits. The toggles told their own story. She'd used my account because she thought it wouldn't ping her statements. She miscalculated. Quiet men read notifications. I lifted the compass. The brass had worn smooth at the edges. It had sat in her drawer for months, pretending to be sentimental. The needle drifted, searching for something it liked. My grip shifted. It slid from my fingers and clicked against the wood. The sound was small. It landed facing anywhere but true. Her eyes followed it down. I placed a small recorder next to the folder. Not a gotcha, just a line item. The recording wasn't secret. It was the voicemail her colleague left when she forgot to hang up. Her voice in the background, the kind of laugh reserved for someone measured. My name came up as an obstacle to be navigated. I pressed play for 3 seconds, then stopped it. That was enough. Context doesn't need the whole song. She started stacking words. Explanations first, then justifications, then corners of vulnerability she'd never shown me when it would have mattered. She said she was confused. She said he was old news, that this was about feeling seen. She said it was harmless. The volume went up. I didn't match it. I let the silence bracket her sentences until they tangled on their own. I pulled the top sheet from a second envelope. Account changes. New locks installed on Friday at noon. Access codes updated. Bank accounts with her card removed. My passwords rotated. Recovery phone put back to mine and locked. The attorney's card was paperclipped to the front. Next to it, a simple inventory list. Car title. The guest room closet. The office filing cabinet. Boxes ready. Her throat caught. The tone shifted. She said we could fix this. She stepped around the table like that would make the distance smaller. I stayed where I was. She reached for my forearm. I looked at her hand until it retreated. Some truths don't need questions. She tried a final route. She said she only misled me because I would overreact. I didn't argue. Overreactions are loud. Mine wasn't. I pointed to the compass. North is still north, I said. The first full sentence I'd given her all night. She started to beg. Not for me. For the narrative. For more time to build a softer version of the truth. For the titles we'd worn in front of friends. Real men don't beg, she'd once told me, usually when she wanted me to chase. I let her words run dry against the edge of the table. I gathered the papers. I left the compass where it had landed. The folder went back into my hand. I slid the attorney's card to her side and pushed my chair in with a quiet scrape. I have an appointment in the morning, I said. She opened her mouth and then closed it. The room held. I walked to the door. I didn't look back. She wanted another map. I had my route. The attorney's office opened at 8. I was there at 7:40. The receptionist unlocked the door, surprised. I set the folder on the glass and slid across what mattered. Call logs, bank pulls, the calendar blocks that shifted without reason. Screenshots. A neat stack. No speeches. He asked questions in clean lines, timelines, assets, boundaries. I answered what I could and kept the rest simple. Separate accounts today. Document everything. Keep records of contact. He mentioned service. I nodded. He watched my face for a reaction that didn't come. Paper did the talking. Back home, the compass still lay where I left it. Slight scratch on the brass, pointing at nothing. She stood in the kitchen with a glass she didn't drink from. We can fix this, she said, voice floating toward me like I might catch it. I set my keys on the entry tray, not next to the compass. I explained logistics. A temporary schedule. Use of the car on alternating days. Mail forwarded. A quiet move-out plan if that's where it went. I kept it administrative. She tried to color it. I let the colors fade. That night the alerts started. New sign-in attempt. Unknown Android, Kansas City. Then Ohio. Then 2 from our own Wi-Fi with a spoofed name. I watched the security dashboard refresh and closed each door one by one. 2-factor on. Recovery codes printed. Router reset to factory, and renamed to something plain. I exported access logs to a thumb drive and put it in my jacket. She knew I noticed. Her first call after work sounded small. IT pulled my emails, she said. They think I sent personal details. They said data exposure. She wanted me to say it wasn't what it looked like. That the messages about meeting near the hotel or trip planning for Europe. She asked for 3 sentences she could hand to HR. I didn't argue. Talk to your counsel, I said. The line went silent long enough to hear the air move. She called my name. I ended the call. Mutual friends pivoted to neutral. One returned a spare key with a careful shrug and asked if there was anything he could do. Keep it steady, I said. He told me she was saying I hacked her. I opened the email alerts and let him read the timestamps, the IP addresses lined in a column. No anger, just data. He handed the phone back quickly. People choose their distances. The bank flagged 2 large transfers from the joint account to a travel app, 2 weeks before our cancelled anniversary dinner. The amounts weren't subtle. The attorney said to freeze the old account, open a new one, and route salary through it. I did it that hour. I cancelled cards I paid for. The next morning she called, breath quick. My subscriptions failed. The card. She stopped. Can we pause? Please. I gave her the bank number and let the silence land where arguments used to be. Service was handled cleanly. Certified mail, then an email. No public scene. No raised voices. She replied with a paragraph about history and mistakes and how Real men don't beg. A line she used to throw when she wanted to win the room. Then a longer message later that night. Promises. Future versions of us with softer edges. She said she would tell HR it was a misunderstanding if I helped adjust the timeline. I saved the thread and forwarded it to counsel without commentary. I started packing in a measured way. Clothes from the left side of the closet, not the right. Cables coiled, labeled, sealed. Documents in a fireproof lockbox. I left furniture. I left the compass on the table, right where it had landed. I placed my house key on top of it. She watched from the hallway and tried to negotiate the pace. "You're making this permanent," she said. I zipped the duffel. "I'm making it clear," I said. Her job placed her on leave pending review. Compliance wanted a statement. She sent me a list of questions they might ask. The answers they wanted. I read it and closed the window. She posted a vague note online about betrayal. Comments split for 6 hours, then leaned quiet. 2 mutuals texted me screenshots I didn't ask for. I didn't reply. Some truths don't need questions. She showed up at my new place once, early evening, eyes trying to be steady. The lobby camera caught the whole thing. Security called up. I told them to treat her like anyone else. Professional. Calm. She waited 10 minutes and left a paper bag at the desk. The compass would have made sense in there. It wasn't. Just a photo album from 3 summers back. I didn't take it upstairs. She called later and dropped the edge. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Just tell me what to say." I let the silence sit long enough for the point to form. "There's nothing to say," I said and ended it. The apartment held its own kind of quiet. A desk, a chair, a bed. No clutter. The phone rested face down. Messages came and went. I kept my calendar. I met with counsel. I logged what needed logging. The compass stayed where it was, back at the old place, pointing nowhere. She wanted to turn it into a lesson about us. It was just an object. She wanted normal to return like a train that runs on time if you stand at the platform long enough. Normal isn't a schedule. It's a boundary. I drew mine with a pen and kept walking.